It's official, guys. The dark times are over. Graphics cards prices have gone below MSRP on average. We'll get into the details of this. This is the best time to buy. Well, it would be if we're just looking at prices. So in this video, we're going to look at, first of all, what are the current pricings of graphics cards, and is it too late? Should you just wait for the next generation of GPUs, which should be coming out around the corner? And what do we know about that? So first of all, let's talk about what are graphics cards prices right now. Well, throughout the dark times, I've been often reporting on this graph from the 3D Center. And now these are specifically looking at prices in Germany and Austria, and every region has its own pricing. I'll also dive into some of the current US pricing, but if you live in a different region, these prices might not apply perfectly to you. Also, if you're like, wait a minute, how these prices don't seem right, I'm in Germany, what is this? So what is this chart even tracking? Well, first of all, it's important to notice that they're based on the average of the respective lowest prices at major German retailers and then set in relation to the US MSRP, including exchange to euro and 19% VAT. I've noticed a lot of Europeans, when they look at the US prices that I post and US MSRPs, don't realize that in the United States, taxes are not included in that. So you do need to factor in that VAT when you're making this comparison. Otherwise, you'll think that the prices here are a lot better than they really are in the United States. Now, there's some other interesting lines here which explain a lot of what happened to cause prices to be so bad. And this should also influence some of what we would expect to happen as we go into the next generation. The light yellow on white, which I have some, let me get myself out of the way here a little bit. I have some problems with the choice of using light yellow on white, but that's fine. A lot of people know I'm a math teacher, so I can criticize graphs, but as long as you can see it, hopefully you got a good display. This light yellow line is Ethereum profitability. And you can see that there was a huge trend along with the GPU pricing along with Ethereum profitability. Notice that this has been adjusted to Ethereum profitability. When they first started making this chart, it was based on Ethereum value. And value and profitability for mining aren't exactly the same thing, because you have to take into account the mining difficulty and the energy prices. Also, this kind of dashed purple-violet sort of line here is GPU availability. And you can see that right now availability is great and Ethereum profitability is down. Although you'll notice that there's a slight uptick in Ethereum profitability recently. And if you're thinking about what will happen with GPU prices as we go into the next generation, I think that most likely Ethereum's not gonna mess us up. I would love it if we'd actually get that proof of stake and all of that, but I don't think there's any sign that it's going to be as bad as it was with our previous generation. I think that things this time around will probably trend a lot closer to their normal situation from previous GPU launches, and we'll get into that. Anyway, we can see that prices have come way, way down. The red line here is the average for the, again, best prices, not just any prices, but you're looking at like your lowest tier models, the best price they were available for. And this is the RX 6000 series from AMD. And the green line here is NVIDIA's GeForce 30 series average of best prices for all cards, again from the 30 series specifically. We can see that finally we're ending here with July 31st, where at least in this market, using those filters on the data, we have NVIDIA cards averaging 91% of their MSRP and the AMD cards averaging 86% of their MSRP. So they finally are averaging below their MSRP. However, that doesn't mean that each individual card is available for below its MSRP. Averages can hide a lot of the specifics. And one of the things about this generation was that NVIDIA realized that they could charge some absurd MSRPs for their highest end GPUs and a lot of their TI models that they released later and things like that. So with that in mind, don't think that every card is available for 91% of its MSRP. Also, 3D Center seems to be done with this graph. So this is Google translated from German, but it says that this is the last time in this form that current graphic cards prices will be considered in relation to their price exaggeration, since the topic is actually superfluous due to price levels have now reached the German-Austrian retail trade. So basically, this is probably the last time we see this particular graph because, well, it was tracking prices above MSRP, and that's no longer the case. Now that we've established the overall market is now, it's pretty reasonable to find at least a lot of GPUs below their MSRP. What does that mean for should you buy right now? It's certainly the best prices that we've seen in a long time, but what's happening with the next generation? Well, first of all, we have to be clear. We don't actually know what's going to happen with the next generation. There's a lot of leaked information right now, but I see in the comment section a lot of people seem to be more certain of that information being true than I think they should be. First of all, release dates can be changed, up to a certain point, until like right when they happen. Also, prices that they'll launch at can change. All sorts of things can change, and that's assuming that the people who are leaking this information even actually have good information in the first place. So we have to understand that the next gen of graphics cards have not been officially launched, and we don't have official information about them at all. That being said, we do have a lot of leakers like Copite, we've got the Greymon 55, all sorts of people who have leaked accurate information in the past, who are leaking information about this upcoming GPU launch, which means that we have at least some ideas of what we might expect to see. But keep in mind that all of this could be wrong or could change before it actually takes place. Now, so when do we expect to see the next gen launch? Well, we're expecting Q4 of this year, but all of the rumors point to the highest end GPUs launching first. This would be like the RTX 4090, and some rumors have pointed to October being the soonest we could possibly see that. From AMD, we've seen rumors that their 7900 XT, or that class of GPU that's competing with the RTX 4090, would also launch first, and that would be around November. But again, these launch dates are not set in stone at this point, but I would be shocked if we saw new GPUs before October or November of this year. And again, the odds are it's going to be the absolute highest end. Now, why is that relevant? Well, I think a lot of people in their heads when they're deciding should you buy a new GPU are thinking about, okay, the new GPUs come out in October, but the thing is, are you planning on buying an RTX 4090? Because you need to understand that that's probably going to cost between $1,500 and $2,000 if you're able to get one for its MSRP. We don't know its MSRP, but we do know that the RTX 3090 had a stupidly high $1,500 MSRP, and that the 3090 Ti was at $2,000. So this GPU will most likely be somewhere between those two numbers when it launches. And even if there's not a crypto boom or anything like that happening at the time, there's always a instant sellout of the newest generation of GPUs when they launch. And part of that is just excited gamers who want to get the latest and greatest thing and have deep pockets. And the other side of that is there usually are scalpers, right? So there will be people with scalpers and bots and things like that buying these up the second that they go on sale and then trying to turn a profit on eBay from the gamers who actually just want to get one and don't really care how much they have to spend. So even if these launch in October, it's probably going to be very difficult to get one, even going into November and December. It wouldn't surprise me if these didn't settle down until going into January, maybe after Christmas. And that's just the ridiculously expensive RTX 4090. Now, initial rumors had pointed to the launch cycle being the 4090 in October, the 4080 in November, and then the 4070 coming in December, with the 4060 not coming out until probably being announced in January with some of the big computer events and things like that, and then availability coming in at least in late January, if not further. And again, there's been a lot of rumors saying that these 40, 80, 70, and 60 could even be pushed back further because there's so much RTX 3000 series cards that still need to be sold. So it's possible that NVIDIA could be thinking, well, we can launch our high-end Halo product for a really high price, and the enthusiasts will pay that price, and then it won't really deflate the cost on the 3000 series too far because these are going to be slotted in at a price that's well above the 3000 series. Not saying there won't still be some downward pressure on the 3000 series. As we've seen, it is trending down. But notice that, we had a much steeper downturn earlier in this year, and this line is kind of flattening out a bit. I do expect it to still trend down, especially on the high-end cards. But I think the largest drop has already happened. Okay, so what are we expecting in terms of how will these perform relative to our current generation of GPUs? Well, it's possible that the RTX 4090 could be, the biggest, I don't think it will be 2 times the performance of an RTX 3090. I don't think it will be 2 times that performance. I think 1.8-ish is probably more reasonable. Again, though, I could be wrong, but it's probably going to be somewhere in the 1.7 to 2 times the performance of an RTX 3090, and it's going to have a massive power draw, which means the people considering this high-end card need to also consider you're probably going to need a new power supply unless you already have one. These are for people who have spent ridiculous amounts of money on their PC and are still going to be doing that, right? In fact, the RTX 4080, if rumors turn out to be true, also has some pretty heavy power draw. And this 4070 Ti that's just being kind of rumored now is also kind of insane on the power draw, and that one wouldn't be part of the initial launch scheme. So it's probably not until you get down to the 4070, which is still rumored to have a really high power draw of 300 watts, and really maybe even the 4060 before you get into one that a lot of people are even going to be able to slot into their build due to power consumption issues and then power supply compatibility. And remember, that's not coming out until into 2023. Now, what are we expecting performance-wise? Well, the RTX 4070, so the current rumor of the 4070 Ti, and I'm going to use this to kind of adjust from a little bit here. We're seeing this from Kopite. Again, Kopite might be... you have to take this with a grain of salt. This might not be true, but he is one of the more reliable leakers that we've had, but that isn't to say that everything he's ever said came to pass, okay? So keep that in mind. But he's saying that this, 4070 Ti, he's saying it's the full-fat 8104 with a 400 watt power limit, which would be something like a 4070 Ti. That might not be the model number that it gets. But this would be a 12 gigabyte card with 21 gigabit per second memory and matching the RTX 3090 Ti. Okay, so that would give us some idea of where this would be. Now, if the 4070 actually has this many fewer CUDA cores and has significantly lower memory bus and things like that, it's going to be slower than that. So let's pick a tech power-ups relative performance chart here, okay? So if we look at it like this, if you look at the 3090 compared to a 3090 Ti, you see this 8% difference. I would expect to see a larger gap there between the 4070 Ti and the 4070 if those rumored specs are true, given the that 8% would just be accounted for in the CUDA cores themselves. But if you're also pushing the energy and the memory bus and things like that, I would expect an even further drop off to be somewhere between, probably a 3080 and a 3090 in terms of performance. So I would expect the 4070 to be around a 3090, but maybe not quite there. And remember, the 3090 isn't that far ahead of even a 3080, if you look at this in terms of percentages. And then you also have your 3080 12 gigabyte, your 3080 Ti, things like that. So I would expect the 4070 reasonably could be around 3080 Ti or 3080 12 gigabyte performance level or something like that. That could be fairly reasonable. And what I'm trying to get into here now is thinking about if you do wait, what sort of prices would you be paying for this kind of performance, right? Because the 3070 launched at $500 MSRP, but even now, if I wanted to go buy an RTX 3070, and we're looking at this in terms of getting an idea for performance, the lowest price available on that, if I wanted to buy one right now, is $550, okay? And this is an old chip. It's been out there for a year and a half, actually a little, right, more than a year and a half now, going on 2 years. And it's still priced above that $500 MSRP. So I think it would be kind of silly to assume that we'll be seeing the 4070 instantly available at $500 when it launches. I think seeing it closer to $600 would be a more reasonable thing to expect. Again, this is just my speculation, but we're trying to predict the future right now. This is all it's all going to be speculation, guys. The official pricing and availability and all that and performance isn't out there yet. Okay, but if you're trying to crystal ball into the future, I think a 4070 is probably going to end up offering us something like a 3080 12 gigabyte 3080 Ti level of performance for maybe an MSRP of $550 to $600. It wouldn't surprise me if they bumped up the MSRP a little bit. And even if they don't bump up the MSRP, then I think the actual board partner cards will still be at least $550 to $600, okay? So then what I'm getting at here is if you wanted to buy an RTX 3080, maybe, and we'll look at like the 12 gigabyte versions usually, yeah, okay. So you can get a 12 gigabyte RTX 3080 right now for $800. So let's call the 4070 somewhere near launch let's call it $600, okay? And I'm guessing that you're gonna get something like this level of performance. Okay, now I could be wrong again on that. I need to emphasize this is all speculation, but you can buy an absolute beast, of a cooler like the Aorus Master. That's your top of the line gigabyte cooler and all of that, available right now on Amazon for $800. Okay, so you might be able to save $200 by waiting for that 4070. You might be able to. But how long would you be waiting to get that? Well, again, the rumors are that the 4070, even in the earlier sort of rumors, is into December for its launch, which might feel like a paper launch in terms of how that initial wave sells out. And it's available for, near to its MSRP, probably a couple of months later. So that would be going into January or February, things like that. So with that in mind, I guess what I'm saying is, I think that if you're gonna buy a GPU right now near the high end, you would not wanna go past the RTX 3080 12 gigabyte as the top end of what you'd wanna consider. If you start getting into the Ti models, you're not actually getting much more performance. If we go to our tech power up here, like the 3080 going up to 3080 Ti, and the 3080 12 gigabyte kind of splits that difference. It's more around right here. I know that's not technically the 12 gigabyte, but it's not in this relative performance list. I could find it, but anyway. So you get a small performance bump going up to 3080 Ti, but as you start getting into that and then the 3090 cards, the price starts jumping up quite a bit. It looks like there's a single model available here for about $900 on the Ti, and then they jump quickly up to around $950 to $1,000. And then the 3090s are still hanging out around $1,200, and the 3090 Ti is up here around $1,400. I think the 3090 and 3090 Ti are going to absolutely crash in price, especially on used market like eBay prices, once we get the official announcements for the upcoming launch. But I think that the 3080, especially like the 12 gigabyte model, is going to come down in price a bit more. But I think it's going to take a while. I think we've already seen the bulk of the drop on this price. I think, maybe if you check in a month from now, maybe these are more easily available around $700. We've seen them come available for around $700 every now and then, or at least close to that price if you factor in rebates and things like that. But like I said, if you wait not say a ridiculously long time, but you need to decide how much you're willing to wait here. I think you might be able to get about that kind of performance for around $600. More available towards January, February of next year is maybe somewhat reasonable. Now, if we get into the lower end cards, what do I think is going to happen? Well, again, the RTX 4060 might be available sometime in the first quarter of 2023. It's hard to predict exactly what's going on with that or exactly where its performance levels are going to be. So, in other words, I don't think that the mid-ranged cards are going to have a lot of pricing pressure for quite a while. So let me put it this way. If you're actually looking to just get into 1080p gaming right now, I think a card like the RX 6600 is currently the best value. With this one includes like a $20 rebate, and you can get in there for about $260 if you factor in the rebate. You can get models for $280 if you don't factor in the rebate, all of that. And this is going to give you solid 1080p gaming performance. Not necessarily ultra on everything and not good ray tracing performance. If you're looking for the NVIDIA equivalents, the RTX 3050 is significantly slower other than in ray tracing and costs more, so I don't recommend it. Actually, the RTX 2060 has seen some price drops recently. And is now available for around $250 to $270 if you don't want the single fan cooler, go up to the $270. And this is going to be providing performance a lot. It's still not quite as fast in non-ray trace performance as the 6600. I just know that some people don't want to go in for AMD for various reasons that we don't need to get into entirely in this video. But my point is that the RTX 2060, the RTX 6600, jumping in there for either NVIDIA or AMD is still going to give you pretty solid 1080p gaming experience right now. And I don't expect these to be supplanted for quite a while. And I also think that most of the price drop that we've seen on these has already happened. If you buy one of these now and then resell it a year from now, you can probably still get a lot of your money back on them, all of that. The point is, let me kind of end it with this. If you're looking to get into like really high performance 4K gaming and you actually have a pretty good GPU right now and you're just like, should I wait? Yeah, if you wait for something like the 4090 and you want to, or even the 4080, and you want to pay a lot of money and you're willing to wait a few more months, then great. But I don't think it's stupid to buy cards even up to the 3080 12GB right now. Because as long as you're willing to accept the fact that you could probably get that same performance for about $200 less if you were able to wait towards December, January, February, something like that. And that is a long wait. And I think especially if you're planning this for 1440p, the 3080 12GB isn't going to suddenly be a bad 1440p card, even for ray tracing, anytime in the near future. Just because the next generation of GPUs launches does not mean that current GPUs are suddenly going to be bad. If they were, right? Like as games come out, certainly the performance gains increase. But look into my 3080 testing. I think that as a 4K GPU, it gets the job done, but the next generation is going to be much better for 4K gaming. For a 1440p, yeah, grabbing a 3080 right now, you're probably just saying, I'm paying $200 to have it now instead of months from now. And you're also taking away the uncertainty of what could happen, because I don't expect there to be another crypto boom, but that doesn't mean there won't be, right? Now, the last place that you might wait for is what we saw last time around, where like the 2080 Ti's from the previous generation suddenly went from selling for around $1,200 to eBay prices around $500 to $600 when the 3070 was announced. So if you're looking at the used market, it's possible that when the new generation of cards actually get announced officially by NVIDIA with some performance targets, it's possible that that's going to be the best time to buy something that like a 3090 or 3090 Ti, where I would see that those would probably get sold off on eBay when that announcement happens. But like I said, if you're just willing to go down to the 3080, which especially the 12GB version, which is very, very close in performance to those 3090 class cards, there's not a huge separation there in this generation, then I think that like I said, you're basically paying $200 to eat up the time frame of waiting a long time to get it. And whether that makes sense to you, is, up to you. Now, also, I'll notice that based on these leaked specs, it's looking like next time around, there's going to be a much larger gap between the 90 class cards and the 80 class cards. So I don't think the 80 class cards are going to be quite as like, it's almost your top tier performance for a lot less money the way we saw this generation. I think they're going for a larger pricing and performance segmentation with that 90 class for the next generation. So do keep that in mind as well. So long story short, yes, you can always wait on computer parts and get better performance for less money in the future, or get, better performance for the same money in the future, however you want to think about that. But there is something to be said for having something now, especially if you don't have a PC at all right now, or your PC is so old that you're not enjoying it. But if you are enjoying your PC right now, then you can probably wait, and you probably will get better deals in the future. But basically, if you don't have anything right now, or you're at a point where you're unhappy with what you have right now, and you're not going to enjoy the next, 6 months or so waiting, if you can afford to spend an extra couple $100 to enjoy it for another 6 months of time, and that's worth it to you, then great. Don't make anybody feel like you're absolutely stupid for buying right now. But also don't feel stupid for waiting, because if that extra money makes sense for you and you're happy with where you're at right now, great. This is the correct answer to should you wait and are you going to regret it is different for different people. How much do you value having something now versus having it in the future? Okay, I know this video felt really long and really rambling, but I just have a lot of thoughts on this topic, so I don't know. Hopefully this was somewhat useful to you, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.